Me Guyana, land of many waters with 6 races living together.
Globuspan is a Guyanese dialogue moving towards the realization of one nation in one Guyana. It's a platform that offers an all-inclusive discussion, with the pros, the cons, the ones that is taken aside, and the ones that stand in the middle. Globuspan believes agreeing and disagreeing are part of the nation's building. Globuspan believes that every Guyanese voice is part of the nation's building. As we span the globe for voices from the diasporas and those living home, we stand on our commitment that we are all Guyanese working towards one nation in one Guyana.
Coffee and Dr. Jagan, Bobby, she gave us our great sons. Rohan Kanhai, Coffee and Dr. Jagan.
As the world turns on its axis bringing changes, we as Guyanese must adopt to those changes for a better Guyana for all. Globuspan stands on its axis with its belief that one nation, one Guyana, one destiny must include voices from all corners of Guyana.
Me Guyana, land of many waters with 6 races living together.
Good night, everyone, and welcome to Globuspan Television, coming to you live from New York. This program is made available by Mr. Noir Singh and its technical directors, Mr. Devin Dissoon and Mr. Ryan Gobin. Tonight, we'll be discussing the teacher strike. We have with us here 3 teachers, but before I get to them, I want to let it be known that the views expressed here tonight are solely theirs and not the management of Globuspan Television. And to add to that, we are a fair and balanced network. I must say that I did ask some government officials to come on the program, and they've all refused. So we can't change anything about that. But tonight, as I said, it should be a very good discussion. The teachers' strike and what will eventually happen. We are a fair and balanced network, and we always strive for the very best. Also, you can tune in to us on Facebook and on YouTube. Once again, we have tonight here Mr. Imran Ali, the head teacher for Lime Pat Secondary School, and Miss Christine Singh from the same school as well. And we have Miss Walcott. Her first name is very difficult to pronounce, let me say that. And she's from Reluctance Primary School. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Mr. Ali, good. Mr. Ali, let me start with you first. And for this question is for all 3 of you. Teachers are supposed to be in the classroom teaching. But you guys are not. Why? Mr. Ali, why?
Okay,
Why
all
not
right.
in the classroom?
All right. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Rose, for having each one of us on your program tonight. And of course, I want to take this opportunity to say how delighted I am and that we're given an opportunity to further explain to the world and to all of Guyana in particular why our teachers are out of the classroom. I want to say that there's a very clear answer to that question. We're simply out there because we're in an attempt to register our plight. We're out of the classroom because we want our voices to be heard in unison, that we are disgruntled at this time. We're disappointed, we're frustrated. And of course, in all of that, we're saying that we are unappreciative of the way in which the government of the day, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Labor, has been responding to a very, very simple call that we're making as a collective, that we're fed up We're tired of the way we're being treated as a citizen of this country, as an employee of the state, and we're asking for our fundamental rights to be respected, which is we're entitled to be able to bargain. We're entitled to what is called collective bargaining, and that our teachers are out there simply because we are being constantly deprived of the right to ensure that we sit around the table and that our leaders, the union that we have elected, our representatives, our legal representatives, are unable to do this on our behalf. And so in the absence of collective bargaining, we are out there in our numbers, not providing our services to say to the powers and to the authority, we wish to be engaged. We want our union to be engaged. We want to be engaged in the process of collective bargaining.
Anything you want to add to that?
Rather said it all, but why I am on the road or I am on strike is that I want to stand up for our teachers that are afraid to come out, are afraid to have a voice or to say anything. I want to stand up for that. And also, as Mr. Imran would have mentioned, and he would have said a lot or echoed everything that we would have want to say, is that there are teachers that cannot survive on the salary that they're having. The cost of living is too high. We need a livable wage. We need, in addition to that, we need collective bargaining. We need our union to represent us. Only the other day, our dear Minister of Education would have said, what's the difference between a Republican status and an independent state? And indirectly, we want the representation of or the voices of the people to be heard. So I do not see why they are not heeding our call. And that is why we're out of the classroom. We want our voices to be heard. We want collective bargaining. And that's my addition to what my HM would have said.
Ms. Walcott, want to add something?
Hi. Yes, I would. I mean, they would have pretty summed up the teachers' position on striking, but it goes a little deeper than that for me. The way I see it, I'm a young professional, right? I am unable to sustain myself on my income, and I'm just in this situation where it's myself and my husband, right? I'm thinking about all my other colleagues out there who are battling it with children, who are in abusive relationships, and it's very hard to think that they can't move from certain situation because they are unable to do better for themselves and they're working professionally. So this is the whole point that I'm out there, because I want to stand with the young people, with the youths. I've been teaching for about 5 years. I've never been on a strike before, and I wanted persons who are in the same position as me to know that you can make a difference. Your voice can make a difference. A lot of persons are saying, Miss, when I listen to you, I feel as though you're speaking for every young teacher out there, because most of them wouldn't come out and say the things that I'm saying because they're scared. I personally have friends who are afraid to come out because they're already struggling to make ends meet with the salary that they're receiving, much less to come out with threats that it will be cut and now you can't do anything because you don't have a supplemental income. It's them alone. So I'm out here really and truly for for the persons like me, the persons in my position who have a lot more at stake, but they don't want to put themselves on the line. So I'm out there putting myself on the line for them.
Can I ask you, what are they afraid of?
They're afraid of so many things. They're afraid of victimization. They're afraid their salary will be cut. Persons from their schools aren't going, so they're not going. You know, the usual in things that would normally intimidate persons. You know, when you can't think on a higher level, or you can't see beyond your situation, those are some of the excuses that you would find young people giving.
How many students are in your school?
I have over 600 children in my school.
How many, and that's really no primary. How many will be writing
Yes.
common entrance?
127, I believe.
So how you think this will impact them, the strike?
Tremendously. But what I can say, and this is just me speaking from the information that I've been receiving, our school is in full swing. We don't have any persons in the grade 6 on strike.
Okay. Mr. Ali, how many students are at Skeldon Secondary?
I have a total enrollment of 668. Of the 668, 95 of the learners are at the grade 11 that would have been registered for the CSEC examinations 2024.
What about the Cape?
The school doesn't offer the program at this point in time.
Okay.
But it's something that we're working on, and so it's one of the plans that we have with the ministry to have that program being implemented at Scanlon Park Secondary.
So you're out on strike. These students will have to write the CXE exam very soon. When is that exam? Around April, May?
Well, yes. CXE's timetable is already out, and that apart from the actual written exam, many of the subjects, the candidates are subjected to what's called moderation. So many of these subjects have a practical component for which moderations have to be done ahead of the actual written exam. And so that often commences by the time we get down to about mid-April. So many of those exams, those that has the component of the assessment, well, of course, that starts very early ahead of the written exams. And I want to say that all of that, it's not just the written aspect of the examinations, but all of this entire package of our learners having to be evaluated is under significant threat at this point in time. Because preparedness, readiness, whether it's a written exam or that it's part of the evaluation where the learners, the candidates have to be moderated as in a practical form, you know, it's being compromised at this point in time. And readiness is obviously being compromised because of the absence of our teachers from the classroom. I hear the ministry talking a whole lot about having to look at alternatives where they're providing virtual platforms. I mean, it's something that we would have tried during the era of when we were facing the pandemic, and it is public knowledge. It is clear, crystal clear, that the fact that we've gone through that phase and we've had to deal with the pandemic, the virtual platforms did not work for us. Our children were subjected to significant learning loss for which we're still at this point, we haven't recovered fully. We've had to make so many adjustments in terms of curriculum and taking other forms of intervention to recover and to be able to recoup that time that we would have lost. And so I'm not sure why the ministry is pretending and behaving as if they're so oblivious to the importance of the teachers in the classroom and telling this nation and our parents that we're providing you the alternative of your child having to be tuitioned via a virtual platform. It has not worked efficiently in the past. And given where we are and how critical it is for our children to be adequately prepared, there's no guarantee that the virtual platforms are going to do it. And we're going to get across the tape with our children having to be successful at these examinations.
Ms. Singh, don't you think that students are at a disadvantage by you not being in the classroom?
Certainly, certainly. They're at a disadvantage. I have 2 CXC classes and I'm unable to reach with them. And the point is, the government has the authority. It is within their hands to put a stop to this, to write to our union, to have collective bargaining, but yet they pretend they're very flippant about our issue. The dismissive attitude that they have towards us, it is atrocious. I cannot understand that these children, not only are we not in the classroom, these children are suffering. They're not being taught properly because we're out there. We can't live on love. You know, we love our children. And my heart is hurting for them, but can we live on love? Can I take love to the market? The cost of living is so high. You go with $10,000, $20,000, you're coming back with 2 plastic bags. This is our oil-rich country. Come on, we can do better than this. The government can do better than this. So I would say certainly these children are suffering.
So we might expect a huge failure in the CXC this year.
Yeah.
Well, no doubt. If we were to be honest with ourselves, if all the variables are not right, preceding, and like I would have said, or I would have echoed earlier, it is about preparedness. Every child, every candidate sitting, whether it's the NGSA or that it's CAPE or CXC, it has to do with their level of preparedness. And preparedness is as a result of the quality of the curriculum and instruction that these learners are receiving, and our modality of ensuring that the knowledge and the skills are transmitted is via face-to-face. And we've always underscored the importance of face-to-face engagement. And so if there's the absence of, and that face-to-face engagement is being disrupted in a significant way at this point in time, then it's not rocket science to say that there's going to be a correlation, or there is an established relationship between being underprepared and, of course, what the net results are going to be.
Well, Ms. Walcott, you have common entrance examination. Is it the same problem at your school? Corporations?
Well, as I previously mentioned, the children are in somewhat attendance and the teachers are in full attendance. So it is left up to those whose parents are in support of the strike, who are keeping their children away. They will be the ones who are suffering. It's very hard, right? We have support, yes, from teachers, but it's very hard to know that some classes are staggered because there is not enough attendance, and then some classes are moving full ahead because the teachers are not in support of the strike, and we have full attendance going on, or almost full attendance happening in the upper levels. So to say that it will impact my school directly, it is only left to be seen. However, from the other schools that I can say who are supporting this strike, the children will be at a disadvantage. The amount of learning sessions that are timetabled per day, they cater for each subject, and if you miss 1 week, 2 week, 3 weeks, that's about a whole topic or a whole strand that is going untaught, and then to try to catch it up and be where you're supposed to be, it will put a strain on the children, it put a strain on the teachers. So if nothing is done and we continue to be out there every day, then you can more than likely you will see the results of the national grade 6 assessment being affected, or it will be impacted.
Your president, Dr. Mark Light, has said that the strike is not only about wages, but the government refusal to recognize the union and to negotiate with the union. The government is claiming that they were negotiating with the union, but the union went ahead and called a strike. And in terms of wages, the government is claiming that teachers are being offered a lot of other incentives, like house lots at a lower cost, houses at a lower cost, and so forth. Ms. Singh, what have you to say about that?
First of all, as our president would have, or the union president would have explained, that indeed that the government has been reaching in terms of a monthly basis, been reaching with the Ministry of Education on a monthly basis, but not pertaining to these issues, not pertaining to these bargaining issues. Now, within the 3 years that the government has been in, I think it's twice they would have met, and nothing to do with that. The bargaining that we are trying and pushing for us, for the union to reach with them, it's not happening. Apparently, like what I'm seeing, and this is my opinion, is that the government is trying to cripple the union so that we have no representation. But that's our right as citizens, to have a body that represents us, and that is what we want.
Yeah, that's in the Constitution. Now,
Right.
Go ahead.
That's okay. Yeah, that's good.
The strike is in its 4th week. How long do you think the strike will last?
I am praying and I'm hoping that the strike will end soon. By the end of this week, I'm praying that it will be finished, because while I'm there, while I want our union to be represented, or for them to represent us, I also want to be with my children in school. However, if that is not going to happen, then the strike would be indefinite. We don't know, we can't say. You see, God has put our minister in that position, reason and a purpose. And you see, if she does not listen to the cry of the people that is placed under her, he can remove her easily. She's a Christian. How is it that you're hearing your teachers crying out and you're not able or not even saying a thing? That's my question.
Ms. Walcott? If the strike would continue beyond...
I want to be honest and be fully transparent, is that I'm currently at the University of Guyana. I have courses that are pending, that require me to be in the classroom, that require me to compose portfolios of the children's work. It requires me to video myself teaching and upload it so that I can gain my marks, so that I can pass the course in order for me to graduate. If it I have to ask for a leave of absence or write the dean for an extension, that will be the case. I really want the strike to come to an end so that I can meet my educational obligations. I can fulfill those. But if I'm unable to, and if they continue to refuse to lend an ear, then I think I will continue to strike, and I want to encourage everyone to come out. Now, today we had the largest turnout at Region 3 there. I would say we had the largest turnout because what happened was, I think there was a ruling that said that an injunction that was passed that said that they cannot cut our salaries. So a lot of people decided, okay, I'm gonna come out now, but there are still some persons who are hesitant because there are still threats to say that even if the salaries are not cut now, they will be cut eventually. Those are the threats that are being leveled, and it's to some extent it still reaches our teachers. So if we hold one head, as we would normally say, if everybody hold one head and come out and support the strike, it will end. Because if there is no teaching, if there is no school, if there is no learning taking place, then to me it would get more attention than it is, because my school, it's in full swing, and there are other schools like my school that are in full swing, like the West Demerara Secondary School. Every day full attendance, teachers, children, full attendance. So if our colleagues can join with us, I think they can help us to put an end to the strike. It's because of situations like these that the strike is still prolonged. Not only the government's reluctance to talk with us, but our colleagues' reluctance to join us.
The union has taken the case to court, and Justice Kisun ruled last week that the government cannot deduct wages or any salaries from your all pay due to days that you're all on strike. Now, this has been a major victory for the union because the government had wanted to start make the deductions, but they can't do it until the hearing takes place on, I think, is March 19th. So until then, you all be paid in full. That's what the judge says. Now, what will happen if the strike continues after March 19th and the judge ruled that deductions will take place? Well, March 19th is almost 3 weeks from now. I hope the strike don't continue. I appeal to the Minister of Labor, I appeal to your president to find a way to end this strike. Somebody has got to lower the ego to end this strike because the children are the pawns in all of this. But apparently my appeal went to their fears. So what do you think will happen after March 19th? Maybe the judge will rule in favor that you cannot deduct the wages for those who are on strike. I don't know. Maybe he said, yes, you can go ahead and do it. But if the judge will say, yes, the government can deduct the days that you're all on strike, what do you think will happen after March 19th? Mr. Ali.
All right, so thanks very much, Dr. Rose, for putting that out there. And of course, in this particular context, we've got to be mindful of the parameters of litigation. It's something that we're going to assess as we get closer to March the 20th. Actually, is when the hearing, well, for a presentation of arguments in court. And so we're as a body, as a union, of course, we're depending, we have engaged legal luminaries, and we are being advised as we go along. But I just want to say to our teachers and say to the world at this point in time that should the Ministry of Education and by the government by extension, should they decide that, hey, come tomorrow, because of the carrion call that we've had from civil society, other sister organizations, even now from regional agencies and from the regional community, and of course international bodies, they've been asking for the same thing that we've been asking for. And so while the support is there and there has been this tremendous call for this impasse to come to an end, as I would have said, we're monitoring the situation closely, and that we have to be mindful that part of the resumption, should we get to the point where this impasse comes to an end, obviously it will have to come to an end on clearly stated conditions for which the union will lobby and have as part of its resumption arrangement, that we're going to advance, because we're going to be very resolute in saying that we don't mind getting back to the classroom, but the terms and conditions will have to be right, and we will establish those terms and conditions. And certainly the non-deduction of salaries or the loss of salary will certainly be part of the terms and conditions of resumption to labor.
Ms. Singh, let me ask you this question. Do you think it's right to be on strike and getting a full salary?
Certainly, it is our right as citizens to strike. If the working conditions aren't good, if our salaries aren't right, we deserve a livable salary. We deserve that. And so it is necessary for us to strike at this time. It is not something that the union would have just picked up and do. It has been over a period of time that letters been sent out, things have been in the process, and the government is aware of it. And to term this strike an illegal strike or so, it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous, and people are seeing, we as teachers are seeing through all of these frivolous things that are being put in the media. We're seeing it. And certainly we, as citizens of this country, have the right to strike.
I will ask you the same question, Ms. Walcott. Do you think it's right to be on strike and getting full salary?
Well, I mean, it's a relative question, right? It goes to motive, in my opinion. The motive, why are we striking? It's because we cannot afford to live on what we're receiving. So in my opinion, and I'm saying that in my opinion, it would be very malicious of an employer to cut the salaries of persons who are saying this is something that we can barely make it on. Some of us aren't making it at all. So it would be very, very malicious. And to add to the question that you had asked previously to Mr. Ali, if the salaries are deducted, right, after negotiations, after the litigations have come to an end, if the salaries are deducted, then we can find several ramifications that will come out of those deducted salaries. One being that we will face severe financial hardships. Severe financial hardships. It will put a strain on us, right? And we already depend on that income. Another one would be, we would more than likely, persons will resent this government. It will cause them some resentment from employees, right? Because we would see it as an unjust deduction. While some might, run back and run back into the classrooms because they don't want this to happen further. And that would be it. It affected their morale. You understand me? Now, the deductions would also have an impact on the negotiation, because if by then nothing has been done, then what you think's going to happen? We will continue striking until our demands are met, right? Now, they also have to take into consideration public perception, how people are going to look at them after this is done, right? People are looking on not only our citizens, right, but persons abroad they're looking on, so they have to face public scrutiny as well. And I don't even want to get into the legal implications, but the decision to deduct the salaries during the strike, it will impact us severely. And I would say it would be unjust for them to deduct our salaries. So we should be able to have a voice. We should be able to speak freely. We should be able to say things that are bothering us without fear of actions being taken against us. And deducting our salary would be an action that is taken. So it would be an attempt to silence us. And they're already attempting to do that by trying to attack our union. So if we don't have a union and they deduct our salaries, then what is left of the teachers in this country? What is going to be left of us?
Okay. What, in your opinion, Ms. Walcott, is a reasonable, livable salary amount?
Okay, so I would have to first say what I'm earning. I would have to go into my expenditure and be reasonable. I have to put reason and common sense in this. So I'm currently earning, my gross is currently 140,000 plus and a change, right? My expenses monthly, it comes up to about 138,000, right? Obviously, my expenditure is more than my income, right? I'm not saying that I'm not going to tell them what to give me, but what I would say is there needs to be a study, some analysis, something needs to be done to figure out what a normal expenditure is per month for every person in this country, for normal persons like myself. I'm not a senior teacher. I don't have another job, and I live in a two-income home. So they would have to conduct this study and then use the results of that study to come to some reasonable conclusion, because it would be wrong of me to say, oh, give me 60%, 100%, 80%, right? And that would take me far above what is within reason. You understand me? So for me, it's not to say, oh, give me 50%, give me 20%, give me this. It's what they have to look at: cost of living and what they're currently paying us, and try to get the two on some level. Because as it is, salaries are this low, are very low, and cost of living is this high. So they need to find a way to bridge that gap.
Mr. Ali, if the government offers the union 10%, do you think the teachers will accept that?
Well, I wouldn't want to say definitively that there is going to be an acceptance of a 10%. Our position is we are prepared to sit with you at the bargaining table. We're at this point in time, we're not even contemplating or having to think about that conversation about what a reasonable percentage is going to be as an increase. And if we were to, even if even if 10% is being offered on the table, what we're simply saying is that we want to negotiate. We want our leaders to sit, and that we want that at that point in time, as we sit to negotiate what might be in the best interest, whether it is 10, 15, 8, 5, what could be sustained by the government. You see, because all of this has to happen in a national context. We've got to be mindful of what the country's trajectories are in terms of growth, in terms of affordability, in terms of what could be sustained. But we're saying that the only way we could etch out what is reasonable is that we must be able to have that dialogue. That conversation needs to happen in a professional environment where all the variables are going to be laid on the table. And so the union will not make a pronouncement, or that we're going to be beyond reason to ask what can't be afforded. But how are we going to know what is afforded and what the government can afford at this point in time? That, my friend and Dr. Rose, has to happen through a conversation. It has to happen through a dialogue. We've got to engage. And so through that engagement, it's where the cards are going to be laid on the table. And we'll take all of the things, all of what my sister would have said also, taking all of the conditions into consideration. And of course, we should be able to come up with something that is amicable, and reasonable on both sides.
This question is all three of you. The government has given a 6.5% increase in December. GTU went on strike in February. Now, should the government now come back and give GTU a 10% increase? The government will have to do that for all the rest of the public service employees as well. Nurses, police, public servants, everybody else. Why did GTU didn't go on strike before the government announced its increase? Mr. Ali.
Well, it's simple. We have been monitoring, and prior to the announcement, we have engaged formally. We have attempted to engage the government formally, knowing fully well that the trend that we have observed over the past 3 years, that the trend continues where public servants primarily would have been the recipients of a wage increase or salary increase, but that it happens as a result of an imposition. And we have been we're privy to this kind of information, and that we in tracking the development as to how things were unfolding, we were only asked, or we were only being invited, our leaders were only being invited to deal with administrative issues as it relates to the day-to-day functioning of the Ministry of Education. We were not afforded an opportunity to lay on the table our grievances as it relates to direct issues pertaining to salary. And so it could not have been at that point in time, because we felt that there was still yet room for the government to heed the call. We thought that, that we were dealing with a responsible government, and that after 3 years of having to be in office, that at some point in time, we were going to have that breakthrough where the conversations and the negotiations could have happened. But unfortunately, it didn't. We found ourselves in a situation where yet another imposition took place. And then what do you expect? I mean, what would you expect of the public servants of this country to do? I think we've gotten to a point where it's breaking point. The frustration is high. Persons are very dissatisfied with again another imposition, and they have tossed out of the window our constitutional right to be engaged in collective bargaining?
In 2018, the teachers went on strike against APNU. And after, I think, 9 or 10 days, APNU agreed and gave you all, I think it was 10 or 12%. And the teachers went back to work. What made that strike different from this strike? Ms. Singh. Ms. Singh, you were on strike in 2018?
Certainly, I was there.
What made that strike different from this one?
The attitude of the government, the attitude of the minister makes it different. Quickly, there was an end to it. We were able, the union was able to go and bargain, and what was reasonable at that time was given to us. This, I don't know what's happening. I cannot say why pride, ego is in place and they are unwilling to listen to us. That is why it continues. Why the government don't want to listen to our union, listen to what we decided that this body of people would be representing us as teachers. What's the reason? Because of the attitude of this government. They want to impose upon us whatever they want and however they want to do it without us as a people having a voice. That is what is so different. And the thing is that they're calling this a political move, or it's being race. It is not. It is nothing to that. If it was political, I would never have come out. If it was race, I would have never come out. But it is not. It is about the issue at hand. And the issue at hand is to have collective bargaining and to see what is reasonable so that we as teachers can live above the poverty line. Look at, only today I was talking to a teacher. She said, Miss, I made my budget. My mom is sick. I made budget. I have a small brother that's going to school. Her salary, she's taking about close to $100,000 home. She said, Miss, when I checked up, it's over $120,000. She had to call her brother and say, look, baby, this is what, and I put your allowance every week for the month. And I cannot afford anything else to give you. That's just a simple example of it. Our government needs to do better. They need to reach with the union.
So you're saying the vast majority of teachers are underpaid?
That's right. If you look at the Caribbean, if you look at the Caribbean salary scale, I'm not saying that we need to get like that or have such a high rate of pay that we, the economics of the country is out of control and all of these things. So I'm not saying that. We want something that's reasonable, that we can live. And a lot of people are saying, why don't we have another job? Where are the jobs? How can we go to a job when there is none there? Especially in the upper quarantine, especially in Region 6. There are not even enough jobs for people that are home, children that are home. You know how many times children that I know of, I taught, are still at home, 11 and 12 subjects in grade 1 and 2s, still without a job. If they want a job, they have to go to Georgetown or move from Guyana. That's the reality of it. Sometimes we want to make a living and we aren't lazy. I would say I'm certainly not lazy. But there is no other avenue that I can go and get a job. Some people say, oh, plant the garden. We got drought right now. The plants are refusing to grow.
Once again, we're listening to Glowspan Television, a fair and balanced network. My next question to all of you. The government says the strike is illegal, and someone just touching it and it's political. Is the strike illegal, and is the strike political? Mr. Ali.
I want to, in response to that question, Dr. Rose, I want to vehemently debunk those two narratives as being propagated by this government to label this particular industrial action as being political, and of course, and at the same time, that to some extent, that there's some sort of racial connotations to it. But let me speak to the issue of labeling the industrial action as being political. And we've got to ask ourselves a whole lot of important questions. Why would you want to deem this action as being political? Is it because we have executive members of our unions who are aligned to a particular political party? And we've got to ask that question in the context that there are other unions. There are other unions in this country that have, as part of their core executives, members, executive officers, who are known political figures as well. And so when those unions speak out, or those unions begin to represent their charges, how is it then that it's not deemed, or that it doesn't appear to be of politically driven and orchestrated? And so we've got to be balanced when we're doing our analysis. And here's where governments need to understand that every single citizen in this country, it is our constitutional right to align ourselves and to be affiliated with a political party of our choice. And that affiliation, it is left to our best judgment and our choice to decide the length and breadth to which our alignment will go in terms of participation in a political process, and of course to be a member of a political party. But the issue here is that to malign and to mitigate the facts of what is happening, the government comes out and to make generalized statement to say, oh, this strike is political in its nature because we got known political operatives of a particular political party who sits at the helm of the decision making and the leadership of this union. But what is wrong with that? Why should the union be brought into condemnation when all the union is doing is pretty much those individuals, those bona fide and of course elected officers are merely executing their roles, duties, and functions as an elected officer, similarly to that of the ministers in government. You're elected to perform a duty. People would have entrusted, the teachers of this nation would have entrusted the confidence and the will in its executives to say, we want you, we have elected you for this, primarily for this reason. And so in our analysis also, we've got to be careful and we've got to be mindful of what is happening out there. And to say that the strike is political, and this is where sometimes I don't get it, because we have seen across this country in each of the education districts, this strike is happening in both of the two parties' strongholds. Let's take a look at what's happening in region number 2, for example. It is known that as part of the demographics of this country and association and alignment and affiliation. It is national. It is known nationally that one of the regions that is in strong support of the PPP, the party in government, is region number 2. But look at the way that, look at who are the persons. We have persons from all ethnicities. We have persons from a diverse background. Different political affiliation. We can't safely say, should we conclude that all the folks that are out there are only supporters of the APNU or some other political party? Isn't it logical that of the masses of teachers that are out there on the protest line and the masses of teachers who have refused to provide their labor and would have taken this action, isn't it logical that they are also supporters of the People's Progressive Party, the party that is in government? So how can we do these kinds of deductions, or that these deductions are afforded to us, but yet we proceed to label and to deem this action a political action, or call it a strike that is politically motivated, when obviously the facts are saying differently?
I think we have lost Mr. Ali. Mr. Ali, you hearing me?
I am.
Okay.
So
go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
got bounced off at what point in time?
Yeah, go ahead. Finish off.
No, I was making the assertion and emphasizing the point that we can't. It is unfair to deduce that this strike by any means that it is politically orchestrated and that it is being politically driven. And I was making the point that we've got to look closely at who are the persons that are out there. And all 13,000 teachers, and if there's 6,000 of the 13,000 teachers in this country, 6,000 of them have decided that they're going to support this industrial action. Are we to deduce that of the 6,000, all 6,000 or a majority of the 6,000 are supporters of a particular political party? Why can't we understand, or why can't we look at the evidence before us, as in many cases where the party that is in government, it's within their stronghold, teachers from within these education districts that are on the front line and that have been refusing their labor. And these are very much the supporters of the party that is in government. So you can't call, why are you now saying, or would it be prudent to say that my supporters coming out here to take industrial action, that the strike is politically motivated? That's a question maybe that the party in government needs to ask themselves. Why are my supporters there on the protest line? Why the teachers who are out there in unison, raising their voice against this oppressive reaction and behavior, why are they doing this? Is it that we're questioning our loyalty to the political party, or is it that we have taken a stand to represent a teacher's issue? And our issue here is we are not paid a livable salary. The issue here is we have been constantly being the subject of an imposition salary come every year end. We are doing this simply because we're fed up of us, not our voices through our elected officials are not being heard at the bargaining table. We're tired, we're frustrated, we're saying we cannot go on like this because as an employee, this is a fundamental right that we have. And all we're saying is that this right is respected in its entirety.
Okay, well said. Well said. I don't think anyone can put it better than you. Ms. Walcott, the government says it did not call the strike. The union did. Therefore, before any negotiations can take place, the union has to call off the strike. Your comments?
No. 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 I don't agree with that one. I don't agree with it. Why would we call off a strike if we know that the impacts or the impact that can be made by this strike will influence negotiations, right? So to call off the strike would put ourselves at a disadvantage when going into negotiation. You understand me? So for them to say that we have to call off the strike for them to no, we weren't on strike all the time and our demands aren't being met. We are unable to negotiate with them. They refuse to talk to our union about imperative matters. So to call off the strike, to be continued to ignore for them to continue to ignore us, I don't think so. Slippers are still on the ground, and slippers will continue to be on the ground until the matter is resolved amicably.
Ms. Singh, it seems to me and to many others that no one wants to budge. The union is not budging, the government is not budging. What, in your opinion, you think should happen to bring the strike to an end from both parties, the union and the government?
Very simple. The government, because we are protesting against the imposition, they need to write just a written letter. Needs to come to the union. When that is there, the union is willing and has been saying it from day one. When you're ready for us to bargain, to have collective bargaining, we are ready. The government, that's all they need to do. We want something concrete. You can't just tell us word of mouth. Concrete something. A letter to state that our union meet with you, what is reasonable. And from that, the strike is called off. It takes one day, just one day to do
what
that.
The union has to do? If the government does that, what the union has to do?
If the government does that, writes a letter, certainly our president would happily, with the officers, go to reach with the government, to bargain with them for a reasonable, livable salary for the teachers. So our union head or President, Mr. Mark Light, would joyfully go there. That's my opinion.
So you think a letter telling the union that we're willing to negotiate with you will call off the strike?
Willing and meet at the table, willing to call up the strike, to meet at the table, to bargain, make sure that we have something tangible so that we can live above this poverty line. Because you want, at the end of the day, you are flossing and that Guyana has been doing so well at CXC and at Cape level. And what's happening? What's happening to your teachers? The cries of the teachers aren't being heard. So if we have a reasonable negotiation that is going to put teachers in a position where they're not going to be mentally affected, because when we have to think about how we're going to be living, where we going to get this money from, if we don't have any backings from the United States or any other island that our families are there, then it tells on us mentally. I can attest to that. For a period of my life, that was it. It began to tell on me mentally. So unless that happens, I think, as Miss said, slippers on the ground.
If it's so simple, just a letter will do it. Let me just play the devil's advocate here. Then why the government is not doing it?
fear, intimidation to get their own way. They want to see how much we can stand. And we will stand.
Dr. Rose, I think if we were to be fair, there's just one word that comes to mind to give you an absolute answer to that question. The government is presumptuous and is taking an undemocratic stance. The government is aware. The way you see, governance is a very important thing, and the way in which governance is supposed to be rolled out to its people, it is not happening because at so many levels, important institutions are being subverted, and that the ministries of the government, the arms of the government that is supposed to be performing its fundamental function, are abdicating their duties and responsibilities. And so in governance, there is the Ministry of Labor. They're supposed to be the buffer between government and agencies or organizations, and of course the people of this country, the working class, and they have the Minister of Labor, and of course that ministry has a significant role to play. And so we have not fallen short as a union to seek the intervention of the Ministry of Labor. They have been written to formally. They have been tracking where the deficiencies are, where the breakdowns were, but that the posture of the Ministry of Labor is one that signals that they are not prepared to execute the mandates, because it is obvious that there is a partisan reaction, and the posture is partisan, and that is what has been fueling the reluctance of the Ministry of Labor to step in here quite clearly, and of course being able to bring the two sides so that we can come and meet in an environment that will foster a positive outcome. And so we've got to look at how the government is reacting, and I say government in the sense that the entire of the apparatus of the government through the Ministry of Labor with its reluctance to step in. And just to bring a little bit more clarity too, that we are not opposed, and I'm saying that as a member and of course a local executive of the union, we are never opposed to meaningful engagement, but that things have to be done in similar manner in which we would have advocated for our issues, and we have done so formally within what is allowed bureaucratically and all of that. Don't you think that the government they have a clear understanding of what it means to respond to such a situation through the Ministry of Labor? I think they do. Why the hesitancy? Why the reluctance? Is it not that they're, and in my view, and this is my honest view, having to subvert?
If the strike should come to an end, and it is obvious that you will not get all what you wanted, and the government will not get all what it wanted either, but you, the teachers, will have to go back to the classroom and teach. Will the teachers act professionally and teach accordingly, or teachers will do what is called a sloppy job? Ms. Singh.
I can speak for myself and many hardworking teachers of this country. We will work to ensure those time lost, those experiences and those learning time that these children would have missed, will work overtime. And we have been doing that even before a strike being called. When we realize that these children are not getting what have been taught, we would go overtime. Sometimes we leave school at 4:30, engaging these pupils. So sloppy work is nowhere in our vocabulary. We are going to work hard with them and to ensure that they come back to par where they're at, or they should be at.
I'm an educator myself, and if, well, I don't think we're going to go on strike, but if we should go on strike for 4 weeks, I think the semester is lost. Now, from my understanding, in the schools in Guyana, it's 2 sessions per day is being lost. Am I right?
Correct.
Correct.
So at the end of this week, the strike will be 20 days old, taking 5 days per week. That will be 40 sessions. You tell me in the name of God how you will make that up. Ms. Walker.
Well, I would say personally, we have this thing called remedial. We also have homework. And teachers are very creative. If it's one thing you can count on teachers, it's for them to be creative and for them to be flexible. And I can assure you that any loss sustained by our strike, it may not be recuperated within a week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks. But trust me, the fundamental concepts that these children need, we will work to ensure that they attain them. I can promise you that. No teacher, I don't think any person in this system who has integrity, who has professionalism, and who has basic common sense would ever go back into the classroom to do a sloppy job. You understand me? We stood our ground. If it is that what we wanted, we did not get, we will go back to work, and we will work, and we will try to work efficiently, right? We will try to work efficiently so that these children can gain what it is they have lost. However, I am 100% sure that I'm not alone in this thought, that if it is we don't get what it is that we're after, and we have to go back to the classroom, we will willingly do so, because we know that at some point or another, they're going to say, hey, dust off your slippers, we need you, and that is when we will go. And I'm sure that our colleagues who have not yet joined the strike, who are looking on, will say, I didn't join and it didn't make a difference. Maybe I can make a difference now. So I'm hoping that if we have to put an end to the strike, I'm hoping that at another point in time, at a strategic point in time, the union can call us and say, hey, we need you. We need your slippers. I will gladly get mine. I will dust them off and I will put them on the ground.
Mr. Ali,
Rose, let me clarify what I was saying.
Go ahead.
In terms of sloppy work, when you were asking a question, that is my response to that. But as you rightfully said, there is no way that a time period that's been lost is close to a month. Can we ever back that time? And it's going to be very difficult, and our government is not seeing that. They would have had their children at private schools, and they're not seeing the need that the children of this land is suffering. And so they're not doing anything. We can try our best. We can go beyond the call of duty. But that time frame, that this strike should not have even gone on to a week into it. Knowing that CXC is so close, knowing that the grade 6 examination is so close, it should not have even gone into this 4th week. What is happening? The government, they're saying that they care. You hear love coming out, but love and care are about action words. and nothing is being done. What about us as teachers? Children, parents are affected. You know how many parents would have called me, Miss, you also striking? Yes. Some of the parents are now wanting to come out because they can't take it anymore. The children are at home. The children go to school. They're placed into a class because they don't have enough teachers and they're not being taught. So
Mr. Ali,
I don't see this.
go ahead. Go ahead. Finish off.
Yeah, I don't see the need for this strike to be so or carry on so long because our government is unwilling to meet with our union.
Mr. Ali, seeing you're the headmaster, they call it HM, for over 660 children, line part, Skeleton line part secondary. They might go ahead and whatever exams they have to write, they might not do that well in those exams. How is this affecting you mentally?
I kind of lost you a little bit early on the earlier part of the question or statement.
Okay, let me repeat. You're the headmaster, and they call it Master HM. They call it Mistress HM too. For over 660 students at Skeleton Line Park Secondary, how would you feel knowing fully well that if the strike should end this weekend or next week, that the students don't have the full education or the full capability to go and write these exams? How would this affect you mentally?
Well, the anticipation of it, of a that this has been prolonged for quite, such a time. All of this is very, very saddening for me. I mean, as an educator, an educational leader, and of course, having so many children under my charge, I empathize with them. But at the same time, I'm left with me being between a rock and a hard place of having to make that decision, what matters at this point in time. And for too long, we have been oppressed, and that we're saying we've got to make that judgment call to say it is time that we begin to represent our issues. And so, yes, it is a psychological battle. I feel for my children. It's never an easy task having to watch them, to watch them have these kinds of experiences. As far as practicably, if there was a way that we could have eliminated these kinds of experiences from our children and them having to go through these difficult patches, we would do it. And that's where, as teachers, and as educators, our children, this nation's children, our society, the needs of our communities and our children are often placed before our very own. And the harsh reality here is that many times over a protracted period, when teachers ourselves, when we endure and encounter hardships and difficulties in life that are brought on to us, whether it is through the hardships of an economy or that it is because of the political climate, we always seem to find ourselves in a position where our children, our parents, our society, our community is often placed ahead of our personal needs. And so we've come to the point where this realization, we're of the realization to say, hey, we can't go on any further because we have children too. We have families too. And the sacrifices and the dedication and all that we put into making other people's lives a little bit more comfortable, we have neglected to do so for our very own and ourselves. And so, like every other human being, notwithstanding where you are as part of civilization, as part of this country, there comes a time when we've got to individually or as a group and as a collective stand up and say, no more. This is about us, not that we're selfish, but this is about us. We've got to fix our circumstances, because if our circumstances are not fixed, how can we go on to helping this nation to develop? How can we go on to give of our very best in molding our future generations when we are in a state of predicament and when we find ourselves in a precarious situation? Our situation today is we're not receiving a majority, the vast amount of teachers in this country are not being paid a livable wage. They're not being paid a livable salary. And so we've got to stand up. I empathize. It hurts me as an educator, but as I've said in all of what I've just said, where do we draw the line? Where do we take a position? And at what point in time should we allow ourselves to be pushed to an extent that we're so demoralized and we're unable to provide for ourselves and our family, and that can now transcend into what our national responsibilities are? I say no more, because we have got to start looking at our own personal welfare and well-being. And then, of course, we'll be able to give a whole lot more to this nation, because we're in a situation or in a position where we're a little bit more comfortable.
You use the word oppressed. That's a very strong word. Give me some examples how teachers are being oppressed. Just a couple.
It is quite clear. What we're seeing unfolding before us is a typical, this right here, a refusal, a blatant refusal, and to disregard the tenets of our Constitution and the rule of law. And sometimes I sit back and I think about all of these bodies, governments and agencies and organizations. When confronted with other important matters, they are the first to jump out and talk about defenders of democracy. They're the first to jump out to say, oh, we've got to be respectful and we've got to be mindful of the rule of law. Now here we are. Here we are in the 21st century, where educators of this nation are simply asking, simply making there's a simple request that we need negotiation. We need for our union to be allowed the opportunity, to be provided the opportunity for which is enshrined in the Constitution. And that is being met with resentment and with strong denial. I'm not sure if there is any other word in the Oxford Dictionary or in any other dictionary that will clearly define what the circumstances are. In my view, it is tantamount to oppression.
All three of you are eloquent speakers. I could not have asked for a better team. And when the strike is over, I would like to bring all three of you back to talk now what's going on in the classroom at that time. But we're coming to the end of the program. I will ask each one of you to make a closing statement, starting with you, Ms. Singh.
My closing statement is that I want to call on this government. I want to call on our Minister of Education to listen to the cries of the teachers of this nation. We want to be able to live, to be able to give our best to our children. And as my HM would have said, we have to certainly look after our own welfare first. Then we can be able to give the best of us to our children. And so again, I'm calling and I'm pleading on behalf of the teachers of the Upper Quarantine, on behalf of the teachers of this country, to listen, to act. Now is the time to act. God has placed you there. Honorable Minister of Education or a VP, God has placed you there. Or a president, God has placed you there, and God can take you out there as well. You are there for a reason and a purpose. This season of oppression needs to go, and we need to live. This country don't have a million people. We can live above the poverty line. We don't have to suffer and stress and have mental our mental health is affected. We can do better than this as a government, as a people. That's my plead with this government, to end this. They can put an end to this. Thank you.
Well said. Ms. Walcott?
The only thing that I think I really wanted known coming into this interview is for persons to take a look at where we are right now as a country. The old tactics, or I should say, antiquated tactics of division no longer serve in this society that we're in. So, as you mentioned previously, the strike was labeled with illegality and of a political nature, and all of that, it served to divide us as persons, because if I'm in government and I say this is political, they're trying to bring, then obviously I would expect from my supporters to steer clear of everything that's going on here. So what is evident now is that we no longer take any of those into consideration. We put ourselves first. We no longer take politics into consideration. We no longer take race into consideration. And I must say that the support from the entire country has been overwhelming for me. Persons of all different races, their background, it doesn't matter where they come from. I even have my good friend, Mr. Martin Samaru, who has been a constant for people of all different races, and him and I don't share the same physical traits, but what it goes to show that we're no longer in this place where we can call the race card, call the politics card, and it works. Persons have to pay close attention to this, that as a nation we're evolving, and that is one of the things I am most proud of, is that these things are only being used as a last resort to divide us, but yet we power through and we whatever our goal is, we come together and we do what it is that we have to do, regardless of race, regardless of economical status. It doesn't matter anymore. We're evolving as a nation, and for that is one of the most I should say one of the things that I'm most thankful about being in this generation of persons that no longer have to go through all of these things that my parents probably went through.
Thank you. Ms. Ali?
Yes, Dr. Rose. Well, let me say on behalf of my two other colleagues that we're deeply grateful for you to have us on the program. It is unfortunate that we've come to program time, but of course, as you would have indicated, we're looking forward to maybe be back with you at some time later when all of this is done and dusted, and that we can in fact give you a progress report as to our educators' reaction going back to the classroom. There are so many guarantees, and on the list, and above all, you and this, of course, this entire country could be assured that educators of this country, we have always stood on the grounds of professionalism. When we're asked to deliver, we've always delivered. The results are there as testimony as to how well the educators of this nation, we have been delivering on educational services to our people. And that I'm disappointed that in an era and a time where we're existing in a global community, that governments will assume such postures. When we're under the microscope, and of course, Guyana is now the spectacle of the Caribbean and the world. But yet, knowing all of this, and that our leaders, our political leaders, are putting us to an immense shame. Our political leaders they're creating an unnecessary situation for the educators of this country. In my view, this is not a matter that is beyond being resolved. Only if all it takes is the mind and the attribute or the attitude to be resolved. And when our leaders can get to a point when they are themselves committed and resolved to resolving issues in this land, then Guyana will be that place that we can truly boast about, truly feel proud and dignified to call ourselves Guyanese. At this point in time, I'm not sure that we can do so with that level of pride, with that level of dignity. Because even as we recently, a couple of days ago, celebrated 54 years as a Republican status, with all that has been happening, and the subversion of people's democratic rights, and it's being infringed upon, can we safely say that we are in fact a Republican nation? What are we celebrating if our teachers are out there on the protest line having to simply register a call to say, talk to us, engage us, let us sit at the table where we deserve a place to determine where the wealth and how the wealth of this country, as a citizen, that the wealth of this country, that it can be made accessible to me, and that I can have a part or a piece of the national pie.
Thank you very much. I must thank our listeners. Some of you sent me a lot of questions, but as you notice, I did not ask the questions, and almost came from teachers, and it cannot be broadcast here on this show. This show is prime time because there are too many swearing words in those questions. Some came from parents as well, so I just had to ignore them. But don't think that I've ignored you all. But when you're sending me questions, at least be rational and not send me those type of questions, because I can't ask those questions to no one in the public here. So I must thank our listeners for listening to us, our sponsors for making this show at least available, and to Noir Singh, Devin Bissoon, and Brian Gobin for making this our technical directors as well. So thanks to all of you, especially to you, Mr. Headmaster Imran Ali, you, Miss Walcott, the teacher at Brinu High School, and you, Miss Singh, teacher at Lampard Skeldon Secondary. Thank you all for coming here today. And as I said to you, I promise I will bring you all back when the strike is over and you all are back in the classroom. As Mr. Ali said, to give us a progress report on what's taking place in the classroom. So once again,